Okay, hello everyone, and thank you all for joining us today on a snowy day here in Chicago. And first of all, I want to welcome you to our first session this year on SheLeadsTech with Expertise program. My name is Ramona Ratiu. I am the program lead for SheLeadsTech ISACA Chicago chapter. We will start this session by sharing the wonderful news with you all. Our SheLeadsTech with Expertise program and Get Yourself Ready was recognized and awarded the ISACA Global Innovative Program Award for 2024. So yay to all of us. We are very proud of everyone's dedication and commitment to make SheLeadsTech with Expertise an impactful program, not only locally here in the Chicagoland area, but we do have an impact worldwide as well. So kudos to everyone that's participating in developing this program, and also to all of you for supporting us and for making this community stronger. Okay, so in 2024, we are going to continue on our mission to increase the representation of women in technology leadership roles and tech workforce. We are going to build on our vision of the SheLeadsTech with Expertise program and support women in enhancing their knowledge on areas under ISACA curriculum. As a reminder, we do have 3 pillars, and let me build this slide. Okay, we have 3 pillars under the SheLeadsTech with Expertise program. Our expertise pillar aims to bring in successful women to share their career progression and their knowledge and expertise. Inspiring Women pillar, it will showcase remarkable women who have made history, including those from our own time whom we admire and look up to. And the retreat, the third pillar, the retreat pillar has been designed to offer sessions to empower, energize, and invigorate. And we are going to collaborate and partner to make this happen through impactful events with knowledgeable speakers, workshops, mentorship programs. So I encourage everyone to be part of the mentorship program, either being a mentor or a mentee, panel discussions, interviews and articles, spotlights, recognitions, and awards, networking events, retreat sessions. And we are going to sprinkle each event with lots of fun and definitely gratitude for your continuous support of our wonderful community. And I cannot move forward without showcasing our wonderful and amazing volunteers that work behind the scenes to make this happen. So thank you, Raki. Thank you, Alexandra, Lindsay, Kyle, Jennifer, Regina, and Vonetta for all your dedication and for supporting us in 2024. And we are always looking for more volunteers to dedicate time and to make this community even better and stronger. So thank you, everyone. And with that, and we're going to go into the session today. I have a couple of logistics for today's session. This session qualifies for 1 CPE, which will automatically be loaded into your ISACA account if you have registered with the same email address as for your My ISACA account. Otherwise, if you use a different email address or you are not an ISACA member, but you still need a CPE, the 1 CPE, you'll receive a certificate via the email that you have registered with. If you have any questions on the CPEs, please reach out to our communications team. I didn't put the email here, but I will ask one of the volunteers, if you don't mind, to put it in the chat. Our email is communications@chicago.isacachapter.org. So if you have any questions about the CPEs or if you encounter any issues, and for any feedback or any suggestions to improve the program and to support our community, maybe you want to see a particular person speaking at our events, or you are interested in a particular topic, please go ahead and email us at SheLeadsTech@chicago.isacachapter.org. Okay, with that, I will pass the mic to our wonderful volunteer, Lindsay. She's going to introduce our distinguished speaker for today. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Ramona. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. Welcome. My name is Lindsay Jones. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our speaker for today, Kimyada Blackman Douglas. Kim is a Vice President of Risk Management and an Operational Resiliency Lead for one of the top 5 largest banks in the world. She has been in risk management for over 15 years. In her current role at JP Morgan Chase, she is responsible for managing a team that independently assesses the risk and controls of the firm's investment division and the operational resiliency of the organization in the event of any major disruptions. Throughout her career, Kim has built out operational risk management framework programs for risk assessments, scenario analysis, risk event analysis and reporting, new product risk assessments, and the development of key risk indicators to ensure senior management has awareness of emerging risk. Kim is very passionate about using her unique professional development experiences and executive trainings to share as tools to help other professionals achieve their goals. Kim is from the Chicagoland area and enjoys spending time with her son, live music, and trying new restaurants in her free time. I'm incredibly excited to hear her insights for today's session on fixed versus growth mindsets, tools to take action and adjust. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Kim.
Wow, thank you, Lindsay, for that introduction. And hi to everyone. Thank you, ISACA, the Chicago chapter, for inviting me today. I'm really excited. I know that I have some colleagues on here that's joining as well, past and present. So thank you all for joining us as well. And let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see the materials, okay. Perfect. All right, so today's topic is one that I'm really excited about talking through. It is one that I even kind of refresh myself a lot upon when I need to, when I feel like I'm struggling with this kind of fixed mindset towards any aspect of my role. I often kind of refresh myself with these materials to kind of make that switch. So I'm hoping that you'll find this useful for yourselves and can use it in the future too as needed. Okay, so what we'll do today, I'll start off with a survey, just a very short survey where I'll go through 4 what we consider thought patterns and ask you to determine whether they align with the fixed or growth mindset, just based off of the terms. And then we'll define them, we'll get into the definitions, we'll talk through examples, but a lot of this presentation will be around the work of Dr. Dweck and her colleagues. So Dr. Dweck is an American psychologist who works at Stanford University. She is a pioneer in the study around what motivates us as human beings. And she has been credited with a lot of work in the space of fixed versus growth mindset. So we'll bring a lot of her work in today's session. And then finally, we'll end with some tools or some takeaways that we all, including myself, can use when we feel like we're struggling and want to make that switch. All right, so I'm just gonna go through these 4 thought patterns, and I'll ask that you please, just on a sticky note or whatever, even in your cell phone, just for 1 through 4, guess which mindset you think these thought patterns align to. Is it fixed or is it growth? So I'll just read through them. The first one, they worked really hard to become a great speaker. Do you think that's fixed or growth? I always struggle with public speaking. That's just not one of my strengths. Is that fixed or growth? I seek feedback so I can identify where I need to grow more. Fixed or growth? And then the final, leaders are born, not made. Is that fixed or growth? And I'll just give 3 seconds. We'll have a silent drum roll here. And then I'll reveal the answers. Okay, so the first one, they worked really hard to become a great speaker. That is aligned with the growth mindset. So as we get into it more and define what the growth mindset is, it really is about applying action and effort and practice and the belief that with those things, you can acquire whatever skills you achieve or whatever goals you want to accomplish. I always struggle with public speaking. That's just not one of my strengths, aligns with the fixed mindset, because the fixed mindset often refers to you have talents and you have intelligence that you were born with, and it kind of remains at a certain level. It becomes constant across your life. And so no matter what effort or practice you put into it, if you're not naturally born with it, it's hard for you to really acquire that. The next one, I seek feedback so I can identify where I need to grow more. I think this one is easy because it has grow in the actual thought. So this aligns with the growth mindset, because again, applying effort, applying practice can get you where you're trying to go. And then the final one, leaders are born, not made, certainly aligns with the fixed mindset. So as I go through today's slides, what I'm asking of you is to please identify your mindset. And I want to be clear, because you may have a different mindset that you're applying to different aspects of your role or to different roles in your life. So you may find yourself applying more of a growth mindset to your career and maybe more of a fixed mindset to your parenting style, or vice versa. So try to identify your mindset for different roles as we're going through today's slides. Think about the impact that it's having. And if it's not the impact that you want it to be, then use the tools that experts have provided to us that I'll discuss today to make the switch to where you want to go. All right. So as mentioned, the fixed mindset believes in nature versus nurture. So the fixed mindset believes, look, we're born with this intelligence and some talent, and once we get to a certain point, that's pretty much fixed. The growth mindset, on the other hand, believes in nurture versus nature. So it believes no matter where we start, as long as we apply effort, as long as we apply practice, we can accomplish whatever goals we set out to. We can acquire whatever skills we want to acquire. And so a fixed mindset tends to be more limited than a growth mindset, which is very empowering because it's optimistic. You can get there, just put the work in. And we'll talk a lot about where Dr. Dweck and her colleagues think the fixed mindset comes from. And we'll use one of her studies, but the conclusion is they feel like when we're young children and we're praised for our intelligence. So when we get good grades, usually our teachers or parents are praising us like, oh, you're really smart, you figured it out, you did well, as opposed to praising us for our effort. And so the psychologists come to the conclusion that that is what lends us to lean towards more a fixed mindset versus a growth. All right, so the growth mindset, again, very empowering, because Dr. Dweck often coins this as the power of the yet or the not yet. So it's the belief that I may not have the skills that I desire right now, but it doesn't mean that I can't practice or learn or grow into them. So it's not I don't have them, it's I don't have them yet. And so while she now resides at Stanford University, for a while she worked at the University of Illinois. And while she was here, she recognized this high school in Chicago. And she noticed that when the students had not met the graduation requirements, instead of receiving a failing notice, they received something from the school saying not yet. And she loved this idea because, of course, she felt like this helped get the students into the growth mindset that you're not failing, you just haven't accomplished your goal yet. Keep trying, you can get there, you're almost there. So she really was a big proponent of this type of, this type of communicating with our students, as opposed to saying you failed, which seems hopeless, right? So she recognized this school as being an early adopter of the growth mindset. So why do we lean towards this fixed mindset? It's there for a reason. And what the psychologists think is that it's there to protect us. So again, the fixed mindset is the thought that you know, at some point in your life have this limited set of intelligence and talent that you're born with, and that kind of remains unchanged. And so if you're validated for that, you know, at some point in your life, you're told, oh, you know, you're really smart, or you did really well on that. Then you want to maintain and protect that validation. And you don't want to stretch yourself too far at the fear of you may, you know, fail and then not be able to retain that same validation that you've had in the past. So they think of this as a way that we use this as a way to protect ourselves. So to demonstrate this, Dr. Dweck and her colleagues did a study where they gave 10-year-olds some problems that they knew were, you know, harder than the 10-year-olds should be able to answer. And of course, the 10-year-olds didn't do as well. And after the psychologists interviewed them and said, okay, how do you feel? How, you know, that was a difficult task. What are your thoughts about it? And they were surprised that some of the students actually said, oh, well, you know, I didn't do well, but I love the challenge. And I love the fact that I'm going to learn something new today. But then there were other students who said, you know, this is tragic. And the reason being is because they felt like their intelligence had been tested and it just was not up to par until they failed. And then later, those same students were asked, well, now that you're unhappy with the results, what do you think you'll do differently next time? You know, kids don't have a filter, which we love about them. So some of the children answered back and said, I'll probably cheat. And then others answered that I'll look for someone who did worse than I did. Right? So Dr. Dweck and her colleagues use this to kind of support the idea that, you know, the fixed mindset is all about protection. So the children would rather cheat than risk failing and not doing well and not being able to retain that validation that they received prior. All right. So again, what leads us here? So this is where Dr. Dweck and her colleagues kind of point out that it really starts at a younger age when our parents and our teachers praise us for our intelligence, something that, you know, naturally we developed, versus the effort that we put into things regardless of the outcome. And so she used this study where students worked on a set of problems, and these they did very well on. And the students were praised by the psychologists in two different ways. One group of students were praised for their intelligence. So they were told, oh my God, you guys were really smart. You must be very intelligent, and you were able to you know, really do a great job. But then other students were praised for their effort. So they were told, wow, you know, you worked really hard and look at the results, you know, it's great. And what they found was that based on the way the students were praised, they aligned with either a fixed or growth mindset. So those who were praised for their intelligence tend to lean more towards the fixed mindset, versus those who were praised for their effort, they lean towards the growth mindset. And the way they kind of demonstrated this is then later, those same students, after the praise, was then offered to pick the opportunity to pick their next task. And they were told, look, you can pick a very similar task than what you just passed, or, you know, one that you probably would find as easy, or you have the opportunity to pick a more challenging task. And what they found is that the students who were praised for their intelligence, they picked the easy task because they didn't want to risk failing and not getting the good grade again. So all about protecting that validation. And then the students that were praised for their effort, they picked the more challenging task because for them, it was all about the effort that they applied. That's where they were praised, so that they can just apply more effort and stretch themselves and see how much more they could achieve. All right, so we've talked about, we've defined fix versus grow. Now we want to really talk about what's the impact of this. Why do we care? Why do we want to focus on this? And so I'm going to go through these 4 thought patterns. I'm going to share some of my own personal examples that came to mind as I was kind of reviewing these. But what I'm going to ask is that those of you in the audience think about any examples that you're willing to share. And then I'm going to ask at least that we have 2 people come off mute and share an example once I share mine courageously, okay? All right, so for the first one, with a fixed mindset, you're less likely to take on stretch assignments. You think you're likely to fail without all of the skills. But with a growth mindset, you're more likely to take on stretch assignments. You live for the challenge. You want the challenge and the time to be able to practice and show your effort. And so when I was thinking about this from a fixed mindset, one of the examples that immediately came to mind for me was job openings. So I'm sure a lot of you can relate when you're at a point in your career where you want to take it up to the next level, or you want to work at another company or a different team, and you see that there's a position open. You start reading through the job description, and then you get to the section where they list out the qualifications that they're looking for or the desired skills. And if you don't have every skill that's listed, if you're not careful, and I know this has happened to me before, you start to lean towards that fixed mindset, right? Well, this job sounds great, but I don't exactly have all of the skills they're looking for, and I don't want to get there and fail, so I better not apply. But then there have been times where I've looked at a job description and maybe I have half of the skill set and I just go for it. Now, I must admit that's probably more in the beginning of my career, but it's something that I do watch out for. The other example that I'll share is once my former manager and I were part of a working group. And this working group was mandated by the regulators. But when my manager and I would attend the sessions, there were not a lot of participants there. They didn't show up. Those that did show up, they were not very engaged. And therefore, this working group just wasn't as productive as it should have been. And I remember probably like halfway through the year, my manager and I discussing it, and it was led by one of our peers. And, we were just discussing like, man, just wish, things would change and that this, because it has a lot of potential. And the beginning of the next year, my manager and his manager called me to a meeting. And when I went in there, they said, hey, we got some news for you. And I go, what's that? They go, the working group that you and your manager attend? I go, yeah. They go, well, we want you to take ownership of that. Now, in my head, all of the fixed mindset thoughts were coming to the forefront. But of course, I, thanked them for the opportunity, and later just really struggled with all of the issues and the potential of failing based on the current state of that working group. And I remember venting to my then manager about it. And I go, it's not well attended, people are not engaged, it's not productive. And he agreed with all of it. And then he said, yeah, sounds like a lot of great opportunity for you. And so I then quickly had to switch from a fixed to a growth mindset to make sure that I could be successful in carrying that out. All right. So next thought pattern. If you have the fixed mindset, you're likely to believe your mistakes or failures are due to the lack of skill. And if you have a growth mindset, you're likely to see your mistakes or failures as opportunities for learning. Again, fixed mindset, you're unlikely to ask for feedback because you feel like your weaknesses are not really anything that you can change. I am who I am. But with the growth mindset, you seek feedback because you know that you can put an action plan to it and address it and become better. And so when I was reading through this, one of the examples that immediately came to mind for me was the first time that I received unfavorable feedback, because we like to think we're always going to get very good feedback, but there are times, right, where you may get some feedback that shows that you have some growth. And I remember this because it was earlier in my career, and I was really confident going into the performance discussion with my manager. So I'm going through all of my thoughts of the year and all my projects, and I'm like, yeah, I hit my goals, I exceeded some. I felt like I had really good relationships with my stakeholders. And then she shared some of this feedback, and it was just from one stakeholder. And I probably sat there the next 10 minutes. One, I was shocked by it. And two, I felt the need to defend myself. And so I, was trying to convince my manager how this feedback could not be reflective of me, that it's off base and here's why. And my manager listened to me. And then when I was done, she said, I hear you, but being defensive will not ensure that this feedback doesn't end up back in your review next year. So if you want to change it, you have to put an action plan to it and address it. And she was absolutely right. And now I find myself as a leader telling my team the same advice that I once received. So my former manager, Allison, if you're out there, thank you, because that continues to pay dividends. And then the final one that I'll share. So when you have a fixed mindset, you're likely to miss opportunities to learn and grow, versus when you have a growth mindset, you go out and chase those things because you want to see how much you can maximize your potential. And so one of the examples that came to mind from my experience for this one was once I joined a project management team. Now, I joined this team as a business analyst. So there were about 3 business analysts, and we supported about 5 project managers. So we would write up all the detailed business requirements for them as they needed them for their particular projects. And one day my manager called me into the office and she said, Kim, we have an opening on our team as a core project manager, and I want you to take the role. And again, in my fixed mindset, I began telling her how that was not a good idea. I had no idea about how to be a project manager. I didn't have the skill set. All of my peers that were project managers, they were certified, they had years of experience, they had strong relationships with their stakeholders, and I didn't have that. And she said, well, I'll be here to coach and support you through it. And she had been such a great leader up until that point that I realized, you know what, I'll trust her and I'll take it. And that has probably been one of the best decisions that I've made in my career thus far. And the reason why I say that is because now when I hear leaders talk about my brand and the strengths that they see, it's all about my ability to drive initiatives and my ability to be solution oriented. A lot of that I picked up being a project manager. So I really appreciate my then manager kind of pushing me into a growth mindset to take on that role. So I'm going to pause there and ask if we have at least 2 people come off mute and share any examples that resonated with them or any new examples of a fixed versus growth that they want to share with us. All right, Julie Brown.
Heather, thanks so much for sharing this information. I would
You're
say,
welcome.
so I actually put it in chat, but when I had a conversation at this point, I want to say it was 2 summers ago. I was talking with my officer and I said, what's it going to take for me to get to that next level? What do I need to know? What do I need to learn? Because I had that original mindset of, I didn't even know at one point that I was qualified to do my own job because of the way the job description is written. So I've learned job descriptions are not a good indicator of what you actually do. But the leader told me that, asked me, he said, if you actually just knew 20% of the job, would you be willing to learn the rest? And I said, of course, because actually learning is one of my favorite things to do. So I said, yeah, of course. He said, then don't let the description hold you back. He said, look at what the area is, look at the information that, or the, the deliverables. Is it the team? What is it about it that drives your interest? And he strongly recommend pursuing that way. And that was like a whole new mentality, because I've heard it before where, from a gender standpoint, let's say, women tend to look at literally everything, whereas men are like, yeah, we'll fudge it. We'll figure it out as we go along, and to try and adopt that more fluid perspective. And given that, it's like, I never thought 20% seemed super low, but that was the eye-opening thing for me. And that was something I wanted to share with this group.
That is awesome. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that. And you're right. I've read studies where they say, sometimes men will boldly go after jobs based on their potential, but as women, we feel like we need to check every single box. And so hopefully this helps inspire some of us today to go for it. Let's take it. Anyone else want to come off mute and share an example? Maybe one more, anyone? Okay, we'll have room at the end of the presentation. So if you think of something, hold it, and I'll open up the floor again. All right, so I know that we've talked more so from a professional perspective, but when I came across this quote from Dr. Dweck, I just had to throw it in here and share with you today. And this is for those of us who are parents, or even just part of a village, for anyone that's of a younger generation, you have any type of influence. I think this quote is just powerful. And so I'll just read it. If parents want to give their children a gift, the best thing they can do is teach their children to love challenges. Be intrigued by mistakes, enjoy effort, and keep on learning. That way, their children don't have to be slaves of praise. They will have a lifelong way to build and repair their own confidence. Dr. Dweck, I just love that. All right, so we have defined the different mindsets. We've talked about the impacts of each, and particularly focusing on the impact of fixed, because that is the more limiting mindset. So then I wanted to share what experts are saying. So if you find yourself in a fixed mindset and you want to make, you want to make a switch to the growth, what are the steps that you need to take to make that switch? And this is where I'm saying, while I've discussed this with previous groups, I often come back here for myself when I find myself struggling with taking on a new strategic project, or taking on a different working group, or anything that I'm feeling like I have a fear of failure around. I come here and remind myself. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is spot it, right? We want to identify, I'm struggling with taking on that new role or taking on this strategic initiative, and the reason why is because I have a fear of failure. So call it out. And then you want to visualize for yourself where you want to go. So, a lot of times we have limited belief, but we see someone and it's like, wow, maybe they're at a level that we aspire to be. So visualize yourself in that same position, and then set up a path for yourself. So what are some action steps that you need to take in order to get you there? So a lot of times when I see great leaders, I kind of jot down what are some characteristics that they have that I want to aspire to. So whether they're great speakers, whether they're great people persons, they connect with their teams very well, whether they drive very well, whatever those are, I write them down, and that becomes part of my plan for myself. So you want to visualize your best self, you want to set the path, and then you want to change your language. So when you see, that you hear yourself saying, well, I can't do that. I don't have the skill set to do that. It's not I can't, it's not yet. I can't do it yet, but when I set these actions in place, I will be able to achieve it. So take out the I can't and replace it with not yet. And then the next one, take action. So get feedback. And I know sometimes, a lot of us, when you're going in for feedback, you have to brace yourself because like the example I shared, I went in there very confidently thinking this is going to be a great review. And, there was one stakeholder that I felt gave less than favorable feedback, but that's okay. I was able to create an action plan and remediate that. So get feedback. And one of the strategies that I've done in the last 3 or so years, at the beginning of the year, I set up time with my manager once a month to get his feedback. So we don't talk about day-to-day responsibilities. We don't talk about what my team has going on. It is purely feedback on my performance. And then I also set up a meeting with my manager's manager quarterly. And what I find is that, when you set it at the beginning of the year, those invites are set out, you're locked in. And so even if me and my team haven't had a good week, maybe we dropped the ball on something, I am still going in accordance with that schedule to give feedback. And I just come out of there, create a plan to resolve whatever I felt was less favorable. And then finally, experts will say, drive, work hard, continue your training and development, push yourself towards continuous growth. So once you achieve one goal, set another goal. And then industry groups like ISACA and external training, always continue to learn and be a student of your craft. And then certainly on a personal note, I'm a big advocate for therapy. If there's something in your personal life that you want to develop, better skills to address, certainly therapy is a great option. All right. So we're almost at the end here, and I thank you guys for your time today, and I will see if we have questions. So I thought a good way to end this would be from Dr. Dweck herself, and I'm only going to play 2 minutes of this, and she's sharing a testimony from someone who wrote to her saying that they applied the growth mindset and the positive impacts that it's had on them. So I'll play this now. And then after the video, certainly open it up for your thoughts, your feedback, and any examples that you want to share with us.
I can't hear her, just so you know.
Kim, I don't think the sound is working. So when you share, there is like a little. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was that, Ramona?
So the sound is not working. Probably when you share your slides, there is a little box. If you click that to share sound. I'm speaking from my own experience.
Where do you see it? What box should I click for the sound?
When you share, before you share, so you need to stop sharing, I think.
Oh no.
Okay,
Okay.
First, actually, let's try differently. Can you go to the beginning and try to play it from the beginning?
Okay. But I have it parked at like right when she's giving the testimony. So it's about
okay, sorry. Let's try. Yeah.
And you guys are unable to hear it.
No, we don't hear it.
Okay. Well, what I'll do, and I'm sorry about that, and I can just explain. And when I send out the PowerPoint, I'll share with Lindsay and Ramona the link to the YouTube video. This one, Dr. Dweck has a lot of YouTube videos out there and articles. She also has a great book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, that I would recommend. And I'll send this video. It's only about 9 minutes long, so it doesn't take much time at all. But what she does is it's a very funny testimony where a 13 or 14-year-old reached out to her and talked about how he applied the growth mindset over his life. So not just over his schooling, but over his entire life, and how he found himself being successful in his relationships in his academic performance, as well as in his relationships with his siblings and his parents. So I thought it was adorable. But then she ends with, this doesn't apply just to students. This carries us throughout our adulthood. And she wants us all as professionals to make sure that we are applying that growth mindset of, maybe I'm not where I want to be, but it's not that I can't. It's just the power of yet, not yet. So I'll stop there, and let's open up the floor. Any thoughts that people want to share? Any questions? I think we have one in the Q&A, Ramona.
Yes, we do. And, Kim, I can play the video if that's okay.
Oh, would you? That would be awesome.
Okay, let me try. I hope I'm not gonna. Yes, I need to stop sharing your screen. Sorry about that.
Okay.
And give me a thumbs up if it's the sound is working.
I like the fact that it was based on sound scientific research.
So if you started, Ramona, at 8:08 is where she began.
In 3 areas, I got a letter from a
Perfect.
13-year-old boy. He said, "Dear Professor Dweck, I read your book already." I like the fact that it was based on sound scientific research. That's why I decided to test out your growth mindset principles in 3 areas of my life. As a result, I'm earning higher grades. I have a better relationship with my parents. I have a better relationship with the other kids at school. I realize I've wasted most of my life. Let's not waste any more lives, because the more we know that basic human abilities can be grown, the more it becomes a basic human right for kids, all adults, to live in environments that create that growth, to live in environments filled, overflowing with yet. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ramona, for sharing that. All right. So that was the end of today's presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me see. We do have one open question. What if you have a manager that focuses more on your weaknesses than your strengths? It's hard to trust that they are coming from a good place. Salome, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. That is a hard one. That is a hard one. And unfortunately, a lot of managers, we are human beings and we need training too. And hopefully your manager will get some training that helps develop them more as a coach. That's the type of leadership style that I like to take on, where you kind of work and see someone's strengths and you work with them on the strengths while also trying to address some of their weaknesses. So I would say my recommendation would be to have a conversation with them and make sure that, a lot of times we have to remember that we're our own advocate. And so when you're thinking about things where you're like, for example, my self-appraisal is one of the most important activities I perform in a year. And I make sure that my team that reports to me also put a lot of emphasis on their self-appraisal, because that's the chance for you to tell your story from your perspective, what you've done well, what strengths you've applied to help the team be successful. And you don't only have to do it once a year. you can do that as often as you see fit. So maybe even a quarterly check-in with your manager, but have that conversation about maybe you feel like only your weaknesses are being identified, and share with them what you think some of your strengths are, and maybe help remind them that that is what's helping this team be successful. And look, I hate to say it, even as a manager, you hate to lose good people, but if you find that you're in an environment that someone is not supporting your growth in a good way, then you should reassess that environment. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question, Kenyatta. This is Raki. In your opinion, how might like societal or cultural factors play an influence on an individual's tendency towards this extra growth mindset? And how do you think that this awareness can impact their personal development?
So if I understand your question correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Raki, you said, how does your culture impact your mindset? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, I think it goes back to what Julie was sharing earlier in today's presentation too. I think just in general in society, a lot of times, especially for women, I would say regardless of your ethnic background, I think, and I don't want to leave out men too, because I think there are times where men struggle to take on a growth mindset too. But I think especially for women in corporate America, because a lot of times some of the leaders, maybe you work for an organization where the leadership is male dominated. And so a lot of times women are very hesitant to go for those growth opportunities because they're afraid, what if I don't do well? What does that mean? And I've had some mentors tell me that they've even thought not just about what if I don't do well, but what does it mean if I take on this position as a woman and I don't do well? Does that impact future women who want to take on the same type of role? So I think certainly culture plays a part in it, gender-based, thoughts play a part in it. But I think, we're getting to a place where society is becoming more open. And I just think, even if we have leadership that is not, very open to the diversity and inclusion and seeing women as they should, as, go-getters, then we have to change that perception. And I think the more of us that step up to take on these growth roles will help change that perception, and even help change those of us who, we belong to certain cultures, maybe even change in a positive way our own cultures by seeing that, hey, she looks like me, but yet she's gone up there and she's gotten that senior role. I can too, right? Representation certainly matters.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments, suggestions, examples? Anybody want to share an example now? We've had time. I'd love to hear it. Let me see, checking for questions.
I don't see any questions in the chat, but I see a lot of positive comments there for you, Kim, and people
great.
sharing their perspectives as well. I think Monique shared her perspective a few minutes ago, and but that's amazing. Thank you so much for all the great insights. Let me see a question pop up. No, yes, there is a question in the Q&A. If you want to.
What are a few attributes to your success in challenging roles? Ooh, I like that question. I think one of the first things that I do when I take on a stretch assignment is I kind of do what I call a lay of the land. So, and thinking back to the working group that I took over, which was a stretch for me, I first wanted to interview the existing participants, to find out what were their struggles. And I often do that when I change teams, when I change companies. whenever I take on a new role, the first thing I want to understand are what are the pain points that others have experienced for either my predecessor or my team in general. So I want to hear it. As rough as it may be, I want to hear it. And I never forget, I had joined one team for an organization a while back. And I was doing what I call the lay of the land and surveying my stakeholders. And, sometimes you'll get someone who gives you like, a very soft answer of like, well, I enjoy working with your team, but I think you guys can do some, make some improvements. And they don't really give you any specifics. And then I came across this one stakeholder who was very candid. And I said, well, I'm taking over this team and this role. What can we do differently? And she said, well, I'll just tell you this. Your team, prior to me, of course, have a reputation of just not delivering. Like she said, it's like a black hole. She goes, you request information from us, we send it to you, and nothing ever happens. Nothing comes out of it of value. And I was shocked, right? But I appreciated that because that was something that I then went back and made sure that I helped to change the branding of our team. So I think one of the things I would say is when you're taking on a challenging role, one, you want to find out what are the existing pain point or challenges. And then two, I take, and this is something that I often tell my mentees as well. The first month or so, give yourself grace, but dig into the weeds. Learn every in and out of your role that you can. So all of the fundamentals, if this role consists of working in 10 different systems, I want to learn all 10 different systems. If this role requires that I align with 5 policies and 10 procedures, I am reading all 5 policies and all related procedures. So I think the second piece of advice I would say is strongly know your fundamentals, right? Have that solid foundation. And then third, and this comes back from my project management hat, find out what's your priorities, right? So what are the absolute things that you need to carry across in this role to be successful? I sometimes will ask you during the interview process. One of my questions back to the hiring manager will be, how will you gauge my success in this role in 6 months' time? So I want to know from them, what are my priorities? Because as you know, when you're working day to day, a lot of noise can come at you, but you got to stay laser focused on what your key stakeholders think are the absolute priorities. Okay. All right, well, I think that's it for me today. Look, you guys have been great. I really appreciate the engagement. Well, first of all, I appreciate the attendance. Thank you guys rock. I appreciate the engagement, certainly. And I'm here. If you have any questions, my contact information is in the PowerPoint. I do, talk on other professional development topics as well. I also do some coaching. So please reach out if there's any way that I can help you, I'm here. And thank you again, Ramona and Lindsay and ISACA for having me today.
Yeah, we thank you, Kim, for everything. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. It was insightful presentation. I see a lot of, positive comments and thank you notes in the chat, as well as some discussions among our participants, which are very valuable. So this makes our community stronger. So when people are talking to each other, sharing their experience, and providing support. So we thank you again, Kim. For everyone, 1 CP is going to be awarded for this session. You will receive that either into my ISACA account or via email. What other announcements I have? Yes, presentation will be uploaded into our website, on the Engage platform. And I have a slide with the upcoming events, which I want to mention. So save the date, or we do have an event coming up on February 9th. It's the first one, the next event that we have. It's actually a workshop on artificial intelligence. It's a full day workshop, and it came out as, you know, per your requests last year. March 8th, we are going to have an event in partnership with WISES, Women in Cybersecurity Organization, and then save the date for May 30th, which is our annual SheLeadsTech conference at London House Hotel downtown Chicago, similar as last year. So hope to see you all there. Last year we were sold out in the first 2 weeks after we sent the invite out. So please go ahead, save the date. We plan to send the invite out sometimes mid-March, maybe. Then, you know, I hope we'll see you all there. So thank you again for attending today. Thank you for everything that you guys do for our community, and you know, hope to see you all on March 9th or February 9th or March 8th. And stay safe out there.